Good morning. So, it is time for day 12. Interesting, huh? Getting close to halfway there. And I know with my own work, I'm already seeing a bit of a shift and a little bit more freedom and opening up, and I'm not sticking as tightly to the familiar marks and the familiar colors. Today, I've just got out watercolor gouache, some gesso, and some water-soluble graphite, which I introduced to you yesterday. And yeah, let's get going and see what our intuition brings to us today. Also, I'm going to try something a little bit different today. I'm going to be consciously creating a field of activation, which I usually do naturally, but I'm going to be working with it intentionally today. So we will see what happens. Let's go. Just as I mentioned, some gouache. I'm going to be working with bigger brushes today just to see what happens. My watercolors, gesso, and graphite, and my good old daily spread book. Actually, let's do the flip through from this angle today because I'm really curious how it's a little bit different. So there we get day 1. Day 2. Oh my goodness. You can tell I haven't had my coffee yet. Day 3. Day 4. Day 5. It's so much easier to flip when I'm standing up. Day 6. Day 7. Day 8. Day 9. Day 10. Day 11. And it's our time. All right. So a little bit more about this field of activation. It's really important that we don't allow other people to plug into us. And some of the modalities that I worked with initially involved like bringing outside energies in. And there's, it's a little bit scary because you don't know what you're bringing in, really. You don't know what's attached to that the practitioner or friend may or not be aware of. And so it is really, really, really important that what I'm doing is I'm just creating a field. And what your field chooses to do in response to that field, like I'm not injecting anything, I'm not imposing any kind of beliefs or contracts or anything like that. So it's just always really important to keep the integrity of your own field and not just allow anyone or anything in. So I am obviously playing with the watercolors first here. Using this bigger brush, and I have an even bigger brush. So this is a size, what size is it? Size 18. And I got really lucky. I got a whole set of these Princeton Neptune brushes on eBay a few years ago for $100, whereas some of the individual brushes are quite pricey. This is a 1 inch, so we're doing a 1 inch oval wash brush. And I'm going to dip into my gouache now and just tap it in. So as I'm creating this field of activation, the idea is to open up space in which you can be more of yourself. And not that you can't normally be more of yourself. It's that sometimes we don't because of maybe a subconscious fear that we are too much for people, or a subconscious fear that we're not going to be accepted, or a subconscious fear of, in that vein, being criticized, etc. So the idea of having this safe space is that we can relax. And as we relax, we are able to expand. And as we're able to expand, we're able to access more of our innate magic and creativity that, we may hide away, that we may or may not be afraid of. Let's see how this water-soluble graphite acts in here. And then in practice, as we step outside our, safe, protected haven, we are able to, one, expand and gradually hold that expansion, have more and more access to our creativity, to our productivity, to our own authentic self. The more we allow it out, the more it will come out and continue to expand. So it's kind of like tiptoeing out into the space. And no matter how, artistic we are, no matter how confident or capable we feel, there's oftentimes a part of us that is still that frightened inner child. The child looking for approval, wanting someone else to validate, needing someone else to validate. And as I mentioned before, with social media, it can be especially difficult because that's what social media is all of this liking and approval. All right, so now I'm bringing my big wash brush back in, and I'm just gonna activate some more of that graphite. And I don't have a plan. This is completely intuitive, allowing my own creative essence to come out to play. And that, scared little child can express and trust, learn to trust. And I'm going to add a little more. And I'm just using the brush to kind of smush that graphite. I really love these juicy dark marks that are coming out of this graphite. And I was going to leave a lot more white space, but I'm feeling like covering it up. So I'm going to listen to that, let go of the logical mind that says, oh, well, I should do this. Or, oh, but a real painting does this. It's not about that at all. Not about that at all. So yeah, I'm just covering up here. Allowing that texture. I'm not scraping or smushing all of that texture away. Keeping that texture. I gotta get that seam here. All right. And now I'm gonna come back in with what it feels like yellow. It's really funny when you have a set of pans, like watercolor pans or gouache pans. And I'm using the gouache right now, but just to give you an example, if I tilt this, you can see which colors are the emptiest. Those are the ones I use the most, which tend to be these juicy reds. The yellows tend to get a lot of use. The cobalt teal gets a lot of use. And some of my other blues. It's just really funny. I'm noticing with my gouache that it's the yellow that is going down the fastest. And it's fun because you can't deny, I cannot deny that in all of my sets, the brightest colors go first. The browns and the blacks even are pretty much untouched. I do use black sometimes, but not very often. I have learned to mix my darks, especially creating complementary colors. So instead of using a black, to tone down a red, you would add some green. To tone down an orange, you would add some blue, etc. And then darks, you can get a really good black, like with ultramarine blue and is it raw umber? One of the umbers, I believe. And so I'm just adding to this here and feeling around for, if I want to add a little more pigment. You can see it's really puddly. I don't know if you can see actually from up there. It is really puddly. And boop, 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 boop. And I'm just, again, feeling into the color and the marks. And I'm going to take my other brush and I'm just going to sop up some of this extra juicy, which, if you haven't done a lot with watercolor, you can just take a brush, kind of dry it out a little bit, and then run it over the puddles, and it will just suck up that extra water, which is fine. You can keep it and let it dry. I am not keeping it and letting it dry. All right, so that feels pretty good. I'm feeling drawn to pick up my graphite again. I'm going to keep the same one. This is the 10B, and this is just a water-soluble graphite. It's a specific arc on it, but I don't remember. This was the graphite I picked up in Aspen the other day, while I've been there this week to hang out, because I don't want to drive up and down Valley twice a day. If I can help it. I like having my time. And I'm happy to, since I usually am too lazy to drive to Aspen unless there's something going on. So it's kind of nice to have the change of scenery. And again, I'm just feeling in, grabbing some of the water at times. Really allowing it to evolve. Got some color, we've got some. And so I'm just listening to my intuition, making marks, allowing it to come organically. I'm not really stopping and pondering too much, which you can do. I mean, if that's what you feel compelled to do, by all means. And I would encourage you not to overthink, not to get up in the mind, again, about how's this going to look and where am I going to post it when I'm done, and I have to prove that I've been productive, and what if nobody likes it, and all of that chatter. If you like, allow yourself to sink into this field of creation. So I am getting out my size 18 brush again, and I'm dabbling into one of my favorite watercolor colors, which tends to be more of an opaque color. And I've got a lot of water on the brush because I have added water to my watercolor pans at the beginning of the session so that it would be juicy. So I wouldn't be having to scrape the pan of watercolor, which you can also, when you take these bottle caps and you magnetize them, you can also pull them out. I'm just going to add a little more water to that. So I'm just letting it and so I'm drawn now to find, or to really use these places where the watercolor is puddly already, and to just kind of add a little bit extra to those. And no idea where this is going. No idea. I'm listening to the river a little bit. As I mentioned before, I can hear the Crystal River, which is about, a quarter mile down the hill from our apartment. And it's really soothing. It's a soothing really invites us to experience nature when we hear it, you know, so. And the dogs are signaling their approval and probably hearing things in the woods. So just adding some more, mingling a little bit more than I had mingled already. Adding some more, getting some more of this teal and allowing it to mingle with some of this puddling over here. And feeling like a little more up there. A little more over here. Ronan, stop, buddy. You gotta stop, buddy. I just took them for a walk. So that has been my routine, is to sit down and create these videos after I walk the dogs in the morning, because I walk them rather early. I've actually gotten them to sleep until 6-ish, 6 a.m. at the moment. Previously, they were waking me up closer to 5:15, and honestly, I enjoy being up once I'm up in the morning, but I'm not one to voluntarily rise early. Although I have to admit, it's also nice because I feel super productive at the end of the day when I've been up since 5 or 6 a.m. Can fit a lot into a day, and there's times when fitting things in is not the point, right? All right, so I'm feeling like I want to dig back into that red gouache. I'm going to use this brush. So this is just some random brush from one of those brush sets. You can get it, Walmart, etc., I guess. So I am just going to add some little marks, I guess, here and there. Really pulling that across. And getting out of my mind, so I'm not thinking about the rest of the day. I'm not thinking about what comes next. I am periodically thinking as I say something to you, but not in a distracting, I'm wholly consumed and can't get into my own flow way. It's just more of a, this is the experience that I am working with. And again, these marks, you've seen the other pieces that I've created in this 30-day series, and these kind of marks kind of are one of my go-tos. I'm intentionally right now dabbing them into the wet so they spread in these places. And feeling like I want to do another one there. So I am, still incorporating some of my familiar marks and colors, right? Because if you've been doing something for a while, there's probably a reason that your intuition has taken you there, unless, of course, you've, simply been trying to emulate another artist, or, reproduce something that already exists. And in that case, I would venture to encourage you to step outside of that known zone. And if you can tune in and just allow your intuition to guide you, again, no matter what it looks like. I'm not going through this saying, okay, I'm going to make prints of this, or I'm going to try and sell this, or anything. And for that reason, you don't even need a sketchbook. The way I've got a sketchbook, you could just use random loose sheets of paper and sit down and play in the morning, in the night, whenever is the easiest time for you to play. Grabbing a little more gouache here. And I'm just playing around with, dabbing into different places here. Sometimes making longer marks, sometimes making smaller marks. And as I mentioned a couple days ago, may have even mentioned it yesterday, I am really doing a slower creation at the moment, as opposed to getting all frenzied and just smushing as fast as I can like I did on the colored pencil page, where I was really just scribbling and scribbling and scribbling, which has its own application. If your intuition's guiding you there, there could be some energy that you are alchemizing. There could be something which you're transmuting into something different that nourishes you, most likely, if you're allowing that to happen. All right, so I'm feeling actually like this is about done. I'm just kind of feeling, and that's not a, I'm done, there's some kind of objective finish line. That's an I'm done. I'm starting to get a sense of completion with this piece, with today's session. And I have set the intention for these to be relatively short as well. So, and to remind us all that, these are relatively short sessions. It's can be super easy, if you allow it to be, to incorporate something like this into your day, to just have some tools available. Maybe you just have them sitting. I just have my watercolors and my gouache sitting out on a little counter. I don't bother to put it away, just for neatness sake. I just leave it out on the counter so I can see it, so I'm reminded. And then I have made it my practice these last 12 days so far to sit down before I go to town generally. I am taking care of my landlord's dogs at the moment, so that's adding a little bit more to do, but not in a burdensome way. Their dogs are really awesome. But even though I have that commitment now, I am allowing myself to continue to create and set that time aside. Again, not in a rigid, scheduled way, but in a I know I'm going to do this today way. And I really do enjoy. I've really enjoyed sitting down to paint, to draw, to scribble. Because there is nothing wrong with scribbling, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so this is feeling like a good place to stop for the day. It is feeling complete to me. It's still wet, but we're gonna zoom in just the same. You can see those yummy puddles, which I'm just gonna let dry and see what happens. I really love that lack of control. And you can see the different textures of the graphite, where the graphite's wet, where it's not. Where the watercolor's still wet, where the watercolor's a little more translucent versus where I really used less water and got more pigment in with the watercolor and the gouache. Just moving around the page. And then coming back up on top for you. All right, I hope again that the field that I created was supportive, that the activation assisted you in hearing more of your intuition, trusting the moves that you felt guided to make, or that you felt impulsed or inspired to make, and that you, more of the real you, the true you, the absolute down, deep, tentative, hiding perhaps, you in all your glory began to take some more steps out into the light of day, where we can create from all of the potential that we've stored up and from this field of infinite possibilities that we have allowed space for. See you tomorrow.